Namaste, my dear brothers and sisters. The love and blessings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo to all of you from Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch. We have in the ashram these days a guest, Dr. Aditi Kaul, who is a highly qualified psychologist. She has a PhD in psychology, considers herself to a perpetual student. But most important is that she radiates peace, very positive vibrations. And I hope you'll also feel some of those vibrations through your screens. She has some fundamental question, and I thought that may be of interest to all of you. So, please go ahead.
One thing which I wanted to ask for you is that there's always this understanding of religion and spirituality, and in religion we have idol worship, and spirituality looks like a more open path. But I've also seen around that even in the spiritual path, we end up having the ideals or the images of the guru who has initiated us on the path or who has given that school of spirituality. So how do you kind of see this paradox and how does it come about? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a very good question. Maybe I'll sum up first the basic differences between religion and spirituality before we go further. Every religion has primarily four aspects. One is its underlying spiritual philosophy. And when it comes to that, the differences between religions are very few, and whatever little differences are there, they can be easily reconciled. The second important thing in every religion is an ethical code. Here again, there's a great similarity between different religions, but then there are some distinct features which may be contradictory, or maybe they're in one religion and not in another. Then the third is the rituals and ceremonies associated with the religion, as you say. And the fourth is the myths and legends that build in that religion. Now, when it comes to spirituality, we basically have only the first component of these religions. That is the spiritual philosophy, which inspires it. And this, of course, philosophy in the Indian tradition rests on the experience of a rishi or a mystic or a seer who has seen the deeper truths of existence, seen not with the normal eyes, it's a suprasensory experience, but then he has experienced it, and then some of these spiritual masters have gone on to establish schools of spiritual schools, and they have insisted by and large that this is only a spiritual school, it is not a religion. Sri Aurobindo and the Mother emphasized that they are not establishing a new religion. So these are spiritual paths, and therefore the myths and legends and rituals and ceremonies, which are the outer form of religion, they don't enter these schools, they should not enter these schools, and they are basically concentrated on inner work, the work that you do within to transform yourself, to become a better version of yourself based on the deepest truths of existence. That is what spirituality is about. But then, as you said quite rightly, even within these schools, it is quite normal to have pictures and idols of the founder who's initiated that school. Now, how do we resolve this paradox? This happens, I think, because of a variety of reasons. Firstly, to some extent, it's human nature to depend upon some sort of a visible form and a certain way of doing things. So, while no rituals are specifically prescribed, but slowly some rituals may develop. They may not be strictly rituals, but at least a certain way of doing things. But then, since it is spirituality and not religion, to do it exactly that way may not be insisted upon. You may not do it and still continue to be a follower of the same guru. So all that flexibility and freedom is available. But because of human nature, these things can develop. Coming specifically to the pictures and idols, that is because, you see, the guru is more easy to relate to than the divine, the unmanifest divine. So that is why we need a human form. Now, if there is a living guru, again, that living guru may not be available to all the disciples. The followers may be scattered all over the world, but the guru is present at one particular place, maybe in his ashram, and therefore the rest of the people can't see him physically. So if they want to relate to that person, it's more convenient if they have a picture or an image in front of them. And when the Guru is physically no more, then of course it becomes absolutely essential. So it is only because we can relate more easily to a human form. And in general, of course, Guru is the bridge between the divine and the disciple. And it is the force of the divine that is being conveyed or channelized by the Guru to the disciple. And that's why, once when Sri Aurobindo was asked by Dilip Kumar Roy, who was one of his intellectually very well-developed disciples, he asked him whether the spiritual accomplishments and the capacity of the Guru matter. Will the progress be faster if the Guru has a greater, higher spiritual stature? So Sri Aurobindo said, no, that will not matter, because the Guru is only channelizing the force of the divine. So the spiritual stature of the Guru will not matter. It's only his purity and sincerity which will matter, so that he is able to transmit that force properly. And since it is the force of the divine which is working on the disciple, which has no limitations, so the limitations of the Guru will not limit the influence which the disciple receives from the Guru. So, the Gita also says somewhere that Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna that whosoever fixes his faith or Shraddha in a particular god or a deity or Guru, I fix it there. The divine actually helps in fixing it there so that you don't waver. But then people don't realize actually it is I, that is Krishna says, it is I who is actually acting through that Guru or that deity. So the Guru is only a channel, not the source of that force. The source still remains the divine. The Guru is a channel. But the Guru is able to do it because the Guru is has that purity, that sincerity, and he wants to help the disciple progress.
Then, as for common people like me, is it okay to say that spirituality takes us beyond that form and help us experience in a much deeper level, and that just becomes one way? And in religion, it's more like doing things about the deity or about the worship. It's like, what is that one way of simplifying the relationship between religion and spirituality? How do you see these things coming together in one person's life?
Well, in rituals and ceremonies, maybe we find a greater emphasis in religion. And in fact, it is these outer forms, the rituals, ceremonies, myths and legends, which lend a distinct identity to each religion. And they are insisted upon more. It is these external features which also lead to conflicts between different faiths. But all the same, they have their place, because it's human nature to develop some such rituals, to want them if they are not there, as I was saying. So they have a place. But then the important thing is to move from one religion to many religions, from many religions to spirituality. As Swami Vivekananda said, if in religions you know only one, you know none. And I think again he or some spiritual master said that religions are the kindergarten of spirituality. So you always start at a certain level, and then you move on from there to a higher level. So when a person is entitled to move on, he will feel that urge, he will rebel, he will feel that these rituals are meaningless, and he will move from religion to spirituality. And in fact, the evolution of the consciousness, which has now accelerated, and Sri Aurobindo and the mother have visualized that it will pick up in the near future. One of the features of this would be that people will gradually move away from religions towards spirituality. And in fact, it is already happening in many countries, particularly in the West. There was an issue of the Time magazine in the year 2008. I know every year they bring out one issue. The Time magazine has one issue which talks about 10 ideas that are changing the world. In 2008, the issue which talked about 10 ideas which are changing the world, one of the ideas was the growth of nuns. Now, what are these nuns? Nuns, not N-U-N-S, nuns, N-O-N-E-S. Who are these nuns? The growth of nuns was one of the ideas they said is changing the world. Who are nuns? Nuns are people who say that we have no allegiance to any formal or organized religion, but we are spiritual. We believe in a higher power. This is the fastest growing tribe of young people in the Western countries today. So we are moving away from religions towards spirituality, and this is one of the indicators that there is an evolution of consciousness taking place.
So how do you see its implication? Like, if is such a change happening at the universal level, how does the future look like at a collective level?
Much brighter, because it will avoid the type of conflicts which you have between religions. And of course, having said that, I might also say what actually Sri Aurobindo has said, that there might be problems with religions, but their overall influence has been positive. So all religions have helped man get better than he would have been without these religions. So they have helped man assert and manifest his better side. The religions have helped do that. But all the same, we can give up those aspects of religion which may not be so useful, which might lead to conflicts, and which may not be essential. So that is what spirituality is about. Religions are more about what is visible outside. Spirituality is more about what goes on within the person. It's the inner work which is more important. One may use the outer things as a sort of a crutch temporarily, like that scaffolding while the building is under construction. But then one can give it up when the person feels entitled to do so. That freedom exists in spirituality. So while no specific rituals are prescribed, no specific practices are prescribed either. That is because each person has the freedom to follow and carve out his or her own path. And when the person feels that the person has evolved, because we are not stationary, and that is the very purpose of being on the spiritual path. In fact, that is the very purpose of human existence. We are evolving. And if we are evolving and changing, what was necessary for us at a certain stage may no longer be necessary. So if a person feels that it's no longer necessary for me to practice in a particular way, or to meditate for a certain fixed period of time every day, or to perform a particular sort of ritual, maybe it's lighting a candle or something in a particular way on a special occasion, or anything, any of these things, if the person feels that that doesn't seem to make much difference to me anymore, it's more what is within me that is important, and that inner churning that goes on after everything that I do and introspect, that is what is helping me go further. Then the person can give up these things. These things can not give up, actually I should say, these things start dropping off one by one on their own, and that is quite okay in spirituality.
I think what I understood is it's kind of a natural progression that happens, and everything on the outside just becomes a tool to go inside, and that inner expansion happens. Makes much more clearer. Thank you so much.